a devotee, right? So what would make the devotees rebel? What would make the subjects rebel? They was eating babies. They was having sex with babies. They was harnessing adrenochrome way back then. It's nothing new. So those are the people who is behind the Pope, the ones that remained in Europe in power positions. The grand illusion was to put the pale face out front. But we didn't know when they was saying the white man that legally the white man ain't even fucking white. Black's Law Dictionary 6th edition say that he a Moor. He's a Judean. He a Jew. And as long as we don't know that, they can keep pushing this pale face agenda to give them the semblance of power while they really wielding the power. As you say, the Wizard of Oz effect. Somebody put it in the comments. It's called a cat's paw. You put somebody else up to do your dirt so that you seem innocent when they get caught.
Woo! Yeah, this one of them ones, and we ain't even really got warmed up yet. No, for real, because listen, we can go so many places. Look, even the tribe said might drop, because that right there, I knew this was going to be one of them ones as soon as we locked it in, I knew, because that's not even something that goes on just in that sphere. That happens in all spheres. You know what I'm saying? When you're dealing with people who don't move with the right integrity or intentions. So with that, how that is, oh man, that's powerful. How do we see those people who are pulling the strings, who are the puppet masters for their pets? How and when do we see them be eradicated, or when do we see the fall of those dirty business dealers?
Look, some of us is the only ones allowed to take them out the game. Because of the level of wickedness that they was doing and the way they concealed themselves, I tell it like this. Pretty soon, a lot of really good people, really good men, gonna have to do some really violent shit to some really wicked people. It's gonna come, and it won't be no secret.
Yep, that part. And I think that's where, for me, it baffles me, because those people, them same people we talking about, they know that Judgment Day not only is coming, but it's here, and they know what the deal is. So now, with that being said, for all the people who, because I know there's people who might have never heard any of this before, there might be people this is the first time they've seen this channel, all that. So for those people who might not know anything about what we're talking about, to break it down in like a first grader terms, who are those people? What do they control? And then where will we see the difference in our experience once that situation is eradicated?
What you mean when you say who are those people?
Like the people we're talking about that control the Vatican and control the current system.
It's the picture of the Pope kissing their feet.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a secret. You can look it up.
Yep.
Them niggas that came over here called themselves conquistadors, Huguenots, and English gentry. That's as dark as be or darker. Hair just as nappy as mine. But when they rewrote history, they painted them as pale face. George Washington wasn't a pale face, unless you talk about Albert Pike and Adam Weishaupt. The real George Washington was from Barbados. They still got his memorial house, right? But they put this wooden tooth George Washington up as the icon of the country. That's not the real person, right? The real person was usurped. How do we know this? When they moved the capital from Philadelphia to DC, why did they do it? The Big Mama put a curse on Congress Hall. So if they try to do anything in there, their whole life start falling apart. So the secondary charter of the corporation known as the United States of America, I think it is, or yeah, they was chartered as a business entity out of Washington, D.C. The military industrial complex is a name they got years later. I think it was in the 50s when they got that name. And when they named it military industrial complex, it was to let you know that this was the military of the Vatican complex. Just like London, all of them are enclaves. They city states. When you catch a case in DC, you automatically got to go to federal prison. Why? Because they're not recognized by any state. That means their state is fraudulent. Their presence is fraudulent. They don't belong here. The only problem is through miseducation and economic warfare. They put us in a position where we believe that they're legitimate government. That's Machiavellian, straight out of Uniform Commercial Code. All of they agents have to wear uniform at some point or another. Electric company, gas company, your mailman, your police officer, your fireman. They took the fire department. They took that from us. Because we had to put out all the fires they was setting to our buildings. That was us. We created the fire department. Right? Yeah, the dirty Moors. The righteous Moors is the ones who had to be called Moor to fight the fight against the dirty Moors. Yep, dirty Moors versus righteous Moors. And you got righteous Moors now that got tricked so good that they don't know that they got tricked. And I don't blame them for it because it was a hard thing to see.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? That's one of them things, excuse me. That's one of them things. Let me ask you this, because if I'm not mistaken, from my studies and research, are not the same, excuse me, people who control the Vatican, the same ones who kind of have the extended version into some of the sororities and the fraternities of the colleges? Is that the same? Are those the same people?
Okay, now you got to know the difference.
Okay.
All of the HBCUs come out of Prince Hall Freemasonry.
Mm-hmm.
That was created by one of the chiefs.
Okay.
And his staff that were Prince Hall Freemasons to combat the Scottish Rite.
I see.
Right. So when you read about it, it's come out as the War of the Roses, blue rose versus red rose, or sometimes they say red rose versus white rose. It come out as the War of the Lodges, red lodge versus the blue lodge, left hand path, right hand path in occultism. All these different sides is we fighting back by turnabout being fair play. Stuff that they use to oppress us, we took it, studied it, and then we rewrote it to use it for liberation. This is what Prince Hall was doing, but he went by himself. We don't hardly ever mention Absalom Jones. He was just as instrumental in the founding of the Prince Hall Lodge. And if you don't read Prince Hall history, you won't know what he's doing.
Right.
Right. Now we had Noble Drew Ali came and went to the Moorish Zionist temple in New Jersey and found out the spells they was using. Once he found out the spells he was using, he wrote code, tribal code. We've been code talkers and code knockers. So when he put it in the literature seems bland to the regular man. but to the tribal leadership, it's phenomenal. He say stuff like, this was a clue he gave us. He said, I could count the amount of Moors that's going to make it on one hand and still have fingers left. Plural fingers left mean the most of them that's going to make it is 3. Right? Then another part, he say, the only thing that would surprise me was if a Moor would do right. Why would he say this as the founder of the Moor Science Temple? Right? He leaving clues. He wrote about a religious controversy. Why would he write about that? Because they're using the religious controversy as a means to separate and divide up the people. The religious controversy is another aspect of divide and conquer. Then they had the skin color. Skin color racism didn't really take hold until the 1800s and the Ellis Island immigration.
Yeah, boy.
The purpose of the Ellis Island immigration was this, because the Turtle Island, the Americas took in orphans from all over the world ever since the earth been here. So they was using pale faces and a brown paper bag test to keep us out of the institutions of learning, finance, the institutions of health. We had to pass their test. So they put pale faces out front. So Big Mama said, okay, turn about being fair play, invite them all. All the ones they don't want in Europe, invite them all the pale faces over here, because we're going to overrun their institution with so many pale faces that the friendly pale faces is going to tell us what they doing. Because they did it in Europe already, so they going to tell on them. Because they wanted them out of Europe. That's what they had the Inquisition and the French Revolution was all about. They wanted them out. Now, when they get over here, Noble Drew Ali say, listen to the European, because I'm going to make him tell you the truth. He quoting Big Mama.
Woo! Yes, sir. So for the people, I should say for the tribe, can you quote, because I think Big Mama could mean multiple things depending on where someone is at in their journey. So can you?
Okay, so we're gonna do it a couple of different ways. From spiritually alone, Big Mama is prime creator. All of creation is in her womb, right? The tribal structure, every tribe have a tribal mother, and all of the tribal mothers have a senior tribal mother. On this land, she is referred to as the Big Mama. Right? And in every family, you have a Big Mama, a Muddeer, a Nana, which is a family matriarch, because we are matriarchal people. But we keep getting stuck believing that this patriarchal bullshit gonna tell us the truth, and it ain't gonna never tell us the truth.
That part. That's facts. Big facts. So when you talk about like Big Mama, and especially when we're talking about the Turtle Island aspects, what is the connection? What's the Kemetic Turtle Island connection when we talk, especially because that's something I've been talking about on the channel as well, about like especially like the Grand Canyon, and, like, the history of the Grand
We created Egypt. In the Emerald Tablets of Thoth is where you will find Thoth telling you that he left over here to Atlantis to go settle Egypt, Kemet. He didn't call it Egypt, he called it Kim. Right? The original that's a replica of is the Grand Canyon, has the oldest temple of Isis on the planet. It got the oldest temple of Osiris on the planet. And the oldest temple of Tahuti is in Mexico. These are the temples that created all of the priesthoods of the world that was originally all female. That's why they all dressed in drag right now and calling themselves a priest.
Yeah, boy, we going in tonight. Now that we already here, we already at the tipping point. Can we get into the mounds and the significance of the mounds? Because that's another thing that's been talked about, you know, in regards to how many mounds are here and how significant. Let's just say Cahokia. I mean, there's a lot of them, but what is the significance of the mounds that are here in Turtle Island versus the mounds that are in Kemet or any other place in the world?
Imagine this. You got a person that's walking around so powerful that just walking past you, the energy is overwhelming. These people, we call them the great ones, the ancient ones. In all of these mounds you see, they either set the mound up as a site to draw from their energy, or a group of elders that laid their physical body to rest, built a mound over them to radiate that energy. These pyramids have a unique energy conversion capability, and the mounds is the precursor to the pyramid. There's more mounds and pyramids in the Americas than anywhere else in the world, contrary to popular opinion. Everybody think that they started somewhere else. They don't know the Garden of Eden and the Fertile Crescent is the area today that we call the Gulf, from the Mississippi River all the way around to the Amazon basin. That was the Fertile Crescent. That's where man originated from. The out of Africa theory is just that, a theory. But if you don't know bloodlines and you don't know the way that they told the story is upside down and backwards, you ain't gonna never put it together. You and David Copperfield talking about he finna make a jet disappear. You going on your way there and it tell you on the poster the greatest illusion you ever seen. You get there and you standing there in Vegas looking at this big old jet, and he put the tarp up, dropped the tarp, and you say, oh my God, he did make the jet disappear. The jet ain't went no goddamn where. He just made it appear that way to you. Just like they say they stole our land, but every time I look out the window, I see my land. That don't make no sense to me when the key part of theft is concealment. You can't seal all this land to Turtle Island. It's too much land. And they Supreme Court already ruled that they don't own the land.
That's another part that I wanted to ask you about. So there was something that I saw in the other interview that I was watching from last week with Young Elder, where you was talking about, I believe it was something in regards to the Vatican. I don't know what it was, but it was like an agreement or something that had to do with like what 100 and something million acres of land or 200 something. It was a crazy number, but do you remember what I'm talking about in regards to that particular?
I'm not exactly sure what part you're talking about, but this is what the Turtle Island, the commission to colonize us and conquer us, was given by the Pope under the white man's burden called the doctrine of discovery. According to the definition of white man's burden, it was to convert all of the heathens to become Christians. Tracing the Christians back to their origin, Constantine said that his purpose for calling the Nicene Council establishing the church was crowd control. He needed a means to control the people indefinitely, and the closest thing he found was back then what he called cult leaders today. They was different heretics that became the high priest that was called to the Nicene Ecumenical Council to establish a common foundation and doctrine by which he would use to conquer. It had nothing to do with saving your soul and stopping you from going to hell, which came from the writings of Dante's Inferno and the history of a place called Gehenna in the city of Ur, where they used to execute criminals. But we don't know that stuff because we think hell is a place that you go after you die. Hell is on earth. Hell is on earth because they're using the system, a Hellenistic system of warfare. The first place they conquered was Greece under the Alexander, who said his father was Zeus. And Zeus is Enlil. And Enlil is a Sumerian deity who had a son named Ninursin. Ninursin wrote something called Money Magic, Sex Magic, and Blood Magic. And these are what we call sin rites. So anybody that practices sin rites is a sinner. And they tell you that in the sin rites is you going about your life making mistakes, you committed a sin. That's not a sin. But when you go in there and take your Eucharist and eat of my flesh and drink of my blood, that's a Babylonian simulated reinforcement of a spell called Kingu.
Yes, sir.
Consume a god in order to suppress your god that's in you. It's sorcery. Yeah. It's simple sorcery.
Yeah. That's deep. That's real deep because now we got to give a shout out to the master teacher, Dr. York, and a shout out to Dr. Blair, and there's so many others that I feel like paved the way for me to get to this point where I'm at to even have this conversation. But Dr. York is the one who I first learned about a lot of what we're talking about now, especially when we talk about Kingu, the sleep spell. So can you kind of share a little bit or go a little bit more in depth into like how that spell is related to what we're dealing with now also, and then like do the Canaanites also tie into that spell with Kingu?
The Canaanites is also victims of that spell.
Okay, so can you share a little bit about
Kingu? Was what you call a mass conjure. The mass conjure required you to they call it sacrifice. I call it murder. Murder one of the righteous ones and write a contract in his blood. Once the contract is written in his blood, all of the righteous people will follow the contract through to its end. The Kingu spell was written to last for 6,000 years. This spell was reinforced later in Egypt in the 18th dynasty during the priest wars, where the Amun priests and the Aten priests was fighting to determine if the gods or the ancient ones should be seen by regular people. The Amun priests say that it's too dangerous under Kingu for the gods to be seen by regular people, so we should be concealed. And we should teach them all to conceal themselves. The word Amen literally translates into English as the unknown. Applied to your religious practices, it becomes a self-imposed conjure that tells the inner deity not to express itself in the outer world, and the parameters of the conjure is the cause. Why did they do it? So the gods cannot be seen by regular people. Why did they want the gods to be seen by the regular people? Because under the spell of Kingu, regular people see a god becomes aggressive and volatile because it's a side effect of being under this spell. The third spell we under is the Crispus Attucks sacrifice spell, first blood. This was what John Dee taught the Queen of England about controlling us for 400 years. Because he knew that it couldn't go beyond the close of the age, that's why he told her she had only a certain amount of time for it to be in effect. They finally, at the American Revolution, when they killed Crispus Attucks, they wrote the secondary constitution in his blood. This is what made the Big Mama put the curse on Congress Hall in protest. This is what made them move D.C., the capital, from Philadelphia to D.C. Before Philadelphia, the oldest capital was always the NO, New Orleans. All immigrants had to come through the port of New Orleans and be assessed by the people in New Orleans in order to determine where would they fit in the land without causing disruption. And they wrote the secondary constitution in Crispus Attucks' blood. This is why they always emphasize that he was the first nigga to die in the American Revolution as the first person to die in the American Revolution. If you want to see the Constitution written in his blood, they keep it at the George Washington Masonic Memorial just outside D.C. I think it's in Virginia. So that's what the spells is.
Whew. Yeah, boy, we lighting this thing up tonight. Shout out to, I think it's Chata Healer in the comments. Yeah, it's not about ego. I'm a child of the Universal Prime Creator. So therefore, I'm not attached to any religion, any clique, anything. Like, I am a spirit having a God child having a human experience. I came here to serve, and that's what I'm doing. So I get what you're saying, but it's bigger than that. It's about what we're doing now. So I don't really want to give that too much more time, but I appreciate the love and support.
That was a good comment though, because it's tied directly to how you need to break away from these spells.
Right, and that's what I was sharing. That's why I was sharing that. So let me put the comment up too, just so that way we keep it.
Yeah, so they can see it.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I get it though. But I get what they're saying though. But what we're doing here, none of that is involved with this. None of that. This channel is involved with that, because ultimately this is about the elevation, the healing, and the information being delivered to the people who are the righteous people of the Universal Prime Creator, that is who I am a child of, and that's who I'm going to serve. So that's what this is about, just to be clear on that. But the name of the channel came from Spirit, and that's why that's the name, and that's why I'm not going to change it. But anyway, I don't want to. I can't find it because there's so many comments in there. But I don't want to disrupt the show with that that coming up. But with that. So when we talk about Turtle Island, right, and we talk about Big Mama, what is the connection to, when we start really, really going deep into antiquity and start talking about the ancients, what is the connection to Turtle Island, Atlantis, and Lemuria, and also Atlanta? Is there any significance?
Okay, Atlantis wasn't called Atlantis. It was called the Atlan, Atlan. Okay. Atlantis became Atlantis because of the writings of Plato. In the Greek, they added the suffix with the tis to the end of it because of the way that the Latin language was written. But it's called the Atlan. The Atlan was capital was Arizona, Grand Canyon, where the great temples are. The history of it is still present in there, but they have it it's a militarized zone because they have temple gates to take you to other temples around the world. In Arizona was the headquarters. So this I lost my train of thought.
No, that's all good. you in regards to like the connection with the we're going into antiquity.
Oh yeah, so America was the capital of Atlantis. Lemuria was like a subdivision. That's what today we call Antarctica or Tartaria. Tartaria is a fairly recent term in that it's a Roman term. Tartaria means west of Rome. Right, and they gave that as another name for the people that lived across the water west of Rome. But remember, they in the Mediterranean Sea, so they confusing where they at with what's west of Rome across the ocean through the Pillars of Hercules.
So now with that, oh man, that's deep. How does the Olmecs play a role into all of what we're talking about now? When we talk about,
they from a different timeline and a different cycle. So all of those Olmec, Inca, Maya, Today they known as old Mississippians. But it's the same people, different time frame, different eras, but the same people. Right? And we had all skin colors over here before 1492. And we didn't have racism before 1492. Everything that you see belligerent, when I say belligerent, I mean that it's against the nature of who we are. Everything you see that's belligerent to us as a tribal people came after 1492. We living in a foreign construct. We living under an occupied territory occupied by foreign forces masquerading as the people of the land. We didn't sign them damn treaties. I don't see Chief Little River on none of them treaties. I don't see Chief Running Bear, Chief Standing Bear, Chief Black Bear, Chief Red Hawk. I don't see none of them names on none of them treaties. Who the hell signing them? Our names was tied to nature because we was tied to nature. We didn't take on other names until foreigners came and imposed their concept of our culture on us the way they want us to express ourselves. When they tell you something is pagan, that means it goes all the way back to Pangea. That's what pagan means. Right? When they call a woman a witch, they saying she a wise woman and you can't run that shit on her. But we don't know this because they villainize words through negative press. Right? Before gangs was bad, we had our gang known as the Little Rascals. Gang mean tribe. Look it up. Do the etymology. Gang mean tribe. They just use it and attached it to every nefarious act of warfare going on in the hood to make you think that the tribes is not the tribes. We ain't never went nowhere. They bust us up. We reconstituted. It's just like when you, what's them robots, when they break them apart, then they all form back together again. That's all we did. We transformed in front of their face. We got the same symbols we've been having for thousands of years. That's how we identify each other. You ain't gonna join no so-called tribe or gang, or whatever they want to call them, that doesn't hold fundamental values that you can relate to. That's the allure, the attraction. The tribe have to move according to how the tribes always move. Crip walking ain't new. It was remembered and reperformed. All Crip walking is Tookie walking with the chains on his ankle through the death row, dead man walking, crooked man on the lane. You see, they didn't electrocute him because that shit wouldn't have did nothing but made him stronger. So they froze him in Area 51.
Woo! We about to go in now, buddy. We about to go in. So now, what you just said, I love that. What you just said, where does that play into the demonic so-called, I guess, power or extraction of power that some of these other beings are